Okay. What is white's main idea in this position, guys? Let's say white is trying to win. Thank you. Let's say white is trying to win. What's the main idea? By the way, this is a very locked up pawn structure, right? It's a very unusual pawn structure because look, it's obviously many pieces have been traded, but there's so many pawns to the left on the board and they're locked up and there are not really any open lines, right? So it's an unusual position for sure. But imagine something like this happens. It can happen. You know, let's say what is white is going to try to do to try to win this game? It's actually, you know what, fine if we put that pawn here. White just has an extra pawn. That makes sense. That's fine. Okay. What is white going to try to do to win? AJ?
Like the pawn structure.
How?
By getting rid of the last pawn in the structure. I mean the bishop.
How are you going to get rid of the bishop?
By getting rid of one of those pawns.
All right, guys. White is going to try to break through. You know, the queen and the knight are not here by accident. The only way to try to sort of open up the position is to play b6, right? That's why the knight has gone to a4. So if he plays b6, he's opening up a way in for his queen. For example, the queen can come in. If the queen comes in, you know, he starts making different threats. White can win the game, right? So imagine something like that. Obviously, only white can win this position, right? This bishop really cannot do anything. It's kind of like a big pawn. Doesn't have anything to attack. All these pawns are in different square from him. So this position I saw in a book called The Most Amazing Chess Moves of All Time. And black has an idea that he could just play here. Oh, isn't that surprising? What's the point of this move, guys? It looks like it has a very big problem, doesn't it? Sam? How is that going to break white's defensive line?
If the knight takes the pawn on c7, we take the knight.
Yeah, but aren't you down a queen for a bishop there?
The black pawn on a5 can advance, breaking the defensive line.
Wait, but you're giving up a queen for a knight. In itself, that's almost always a losing decision, right? And what you're telling me is you're giving up the queen for the knight, and then you're going to try to attack me? With what? With your bishop against my queen?
No, not with that.
Right, but you're going to play here, but that only loses another pawn. Now, white wins really easily. If you give me that pawn, like now my queen is going to come in here. I'm going to start eating all your pawns. Your bishop is helpless. You know, a queen is worth something, guys, right? I mean, in almost all positions, an advantage like this is absolutely winning. But why would black voluntarily put their queen on that square? No one was forcing them. So they must have some idea. Now, what is the idea behind the move queen to b6? Isabel?
I'm guessing they're going for a draw.
Well, they are going for a draw because they're worse to start with, right? They're trying to defend. But what are they going to make a draw based on? I mean, how can giving up your queen for a knight ever lead to a draw? Why would that be a good idea? Charlie?
To make it a draw by the 50 move rule, because black will keep on moving his king around while white tries to get into the position and tries to break the pawn position.
Right. Well, that's on the right track, Charlie. That's pretty much it. Of course, you know, white is going to take the queen, right? Because otherwise, we've also, when we play queen b6, we are stopping white's main idea of advancing their pawn, right? So that's the main point of queen b6. But normally, we wouldn't be able to make that move because we lose our queen. However, let's talk about the resulting position. Remember, I told you this was an unusual pawn position. Pawn structure is very locked. It's, no open lines. How does white make progress here with his extra queen? Like, what's the plan? I'm just going to sit around with my king. I don't touch my pawn, definitely not giving up any pawn, not moving my bishop anywhere. I'm just going to, sit here and here. What is white's plan to win? Maybe I can, I'll stay around here. How is white going to try to win this, guys? Can they break through anywhere with the queen? Can they show the power of the queen? And the answer is no.
But what if you don't take?
Well, if you don't take, then you're not playing b6, and then your main idea was gone. Then you'll have to make some other move, and you also don't really have anywhere to break through. So queen b6 was trying to stop your main breakthrough idea. So the problem is the queen just, you're not going to sacrifice your queen for a pawn, right? That's not going to help you. That's only going to lose the game for you. And the queen cannot invade, cannot kind of get past this. If you can put the queen anywhere here, it easily wins, because then the queen will overpower the king and start winning pawns, right? But the problem is the queen cannot get outside of the pawn chain. So this is, let me tell you guys, this is very unusual. This is why this example made it into the most amazing chess moves of all time, because you don't normally give up your queen for a knight and then make a draw, right? And here's the thing, guys. This is a special kind of position. Black has something called a fortress. Have you heard that ever in chess?
Yes.
We hear that in chess a lot. A fortress is something that you can't do what with? You can't break through, you can't break down. So black makes a draw based on the fortress idea, that his position is impregnable. You just can't enter it anywhere. Except one thing, black can still lose this. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. So, tough question, but I think you guys can figure it out. Let's say my king, black is a little bit careless. And instead of moving his king on this side of the board, he moves it over here. Let's say he moves it here. White now has at least an idea to win. White has an idea. Now, who can think of it? What did it change where I moved my king, and what kind of idea did it give white? That's why it's important in chess to have a fantasy, to have a dream of what you can try to accomplish. Here you need to imagine where your winning chances can come from. Charlie.
Queen b4.
Queen b4?
Yeah.
So I'm going to, let's say I take it.
A takes b4.
It's next 7.
Let's say I take it.
c5.
c5, you're doing a pawn breakthrough. It's very clever. Very good. So this is a breakthrough with the pawns, and where white is the one now who sacrifices his material advantage, and these pawns overpower these defenders, and the bishop and the king are helpless to do anything about it, because the pawn is threatening to just go here, become a queen again, where if this pawn takes, then unfortunately for black, no one can stop the d pawn on time. I moved the king just far away enough for you to be able to make that idea work, Charlie. If the king had been just one square closer, black could be in time to stop the pawn and win the game. But the king is so far that he is not able to get into this square in time that he needs to be in. And the bishop, as you see, cannot jump here, cannot take the place of its own pawn, and no one is stopping this pawn from promoting. Did we see that? Very good idea, Charlie. So white has an idea of sacrificing material back in order to break down the fortress and get a passed pawn. The other idea that I had for you was you could go here and sacrifice your queen for this pawn. Because that's the same idea that you have with the move queen b4. If I ignore you, like if I play, let's say here, you have to make the same idea work. You have to sacrifice your queen for this pawn in order to get your b pawn moving, and black cannot stop the b pawn from promoting to another queen. Do we see that? What are you saying?
Or you could sacrifice the queen for the c pawn instead.
No, you can't. That's a good question. That's a good point you're making, but in fact, you cannot sacrifice your queen for this pawn because black is going to capture back which way? There are two ways. One of them loses, one of them wins. Or at least, if not wins, it's close to. At least black doesn't lose. Black might not be able to win because of the fortress still on the board, but which way should black recapture here, guys? Think about it. Isabel.
With the d pawn.
With the d pawn, because because then the passed pawn that white has is this pawn, and the king is close enough to stop it, right? He's right there, so that if it tries to promote, the king takes it, right? The other way, the king is forced, if you capture with the b pawn, then the king is too far from the b pawn, it becomes a queen. So it actually does make a big difference which pawn you take in this position, c5 or a5, right? It's always never too late to make a mistake, but if you take this way, you win the game because you get a passed pawn. So remember what I said, what Philidor said was that passed pawns, pawns are the soul of chess, especially when they become passed pawns. And you can even give up your queen because for this one little pawn to get a free path up the board to the b8 square. So why did I give you this example, guys? It's obviously very unusual. But the idea was, when we were talking about the value of material on the board, right, is that even though, yes, queen is worth 9, rooks are worth 5, bishops and knights are worth 3, it's still, in every particular position, it's still kind of it's a relative thing. You know, it's not completely fixed. In this position, you know, even though white has a queen, black has a bishop, the result is a draw, right? So the actual strength of the material you have depends on every position. You guys understand that?
Yeah.
Yes?